To drop something in there just because before we close out, Mike, one of my favorite books, Cody, I'm not sure if you had it, The Go-Giver.
By Bob Burg, B-U-R-G, that's great.
One of my favorite books. Don't be a go-getter, be a go-giver. Oh my goodness, just a way more energy because it does come back.
Yeah, I would say, and here, the definition of kindness to me is giving to others without expecting something in return. As soon as you're expecting something in return, that can easily become manipulation rather than actually just kindness. So find a way to give to somebody without expecting something in return, and you'll feel so good. You'll help them, you'll help yourself.
Get us started, I think a lot of us know that you're a career changer. In your past life, you were a musician. So first question is, what is your favorite type of music to play? And what's your favorite type of music to listen to?
Oh, that's a great question. So favorite music to play and arrange is contemporary Christian and kind of like the Black gospel, Motown. I used to work with Motown gospel. So yeah, anything with good rhythm and the truth, right, of the gospel, I'm a big fan of. Favorite music to listen to, I go back in time. I would say big band jazz and 70s gospel, Motown music from the 70s. So I know Deshaun in Detroit, all about Motown, right? So that music will never be old to me. Rest in peace, Quincy Jones, right? Like Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, all my favorite. Anything that's got a beat, right? Anything that's got a beat and some cool chords, I can get down to that.
I think the 80s was the best era of music by far. I think that was by far the best. I think I liked how you worded that, good music never gets old. Like, that's a good way to put it. Because I definitely play Motown like it came out yesterday.
So, Sean, it's funny you say that. My dad always says the same thing. Like, you're still listening to my music. I don't know if I'll still be listening to your music down the road.
That's so true. My dad does the same thing. He'll listen to some of my music, and I'm find myself liking his music more and more. It's just funny how that goes, right? Because as you're getting older, you're like, oh, I don't like your stuff, I like my stuff. And then it's like this full circle moment, like, oh, I do like this stuff a lot more.
I've heard that everybody effectively, at a certain point, you connect most emotionally with music you listen to in middle school. I guess because that's when you're going through all those changes. So, right? So, yeah, I'm sure that maybe when I'm old, I'll be talking about Will Smith's Getting Jiggy With It and some of those other tunes from my middle school days. But yeah, I don't think I've listened to any songs that have come out in the last 5 years. So I would not be a good trivia partner right now.
You would hate my YouTube playlist. It is everything new. It's all brand new. But it's a mix and a match, right? I think everything is just a matter of the mood. But good music, as I say, good music is timeless, right? The good stuff will be here, and the rest will just fade, with time.
Well, ironically, I worked as a full-time musician for 10 years, and I probably don't listen to more than an hour of music a week.
I know. Isn't that the interesting thing? As you get older, you listen to a lot less music. I remember doing anything, you'd have to listen to music, but now it's...
Yeah, I don't drive anywhere, right? So there's no transportation podcasts and music, and I listen to podcasts, but mostly when I'm just trying to refresh my brain a little bit or listen to, influencer. But yeah, music's a funny thing where, you really listen to music while you're on the go, and I'm not on the go like hardly ever. Yeah. I probably leave my house for like 2 hours a week at the most. Again, just to church and back, or maybe a conference every now and then.
That's crazy. I'm the opposite. I don't listen to music in transit. I just go no headphones. I find myself not wanting to use headphones. I find myself being at home with the Apple speakers blaring in it, like I want to feel the music through the room, not just in traffic and stuff. Like if I'm on a train or I'm in a commute, I like to be a little just like, that's how I debrief my mind, by just giving it some space, because we're just bombarded with so much content and stuff. So those are the times I'm like, no headphones.
Yeah, I think you a good reminder there that like it's a good reminder to us that you shouldn't just listen to like nonfiction things. Like, I all the podcasts I listen to are about, mindfulness or like productivity or business stuff. It's like, hey, like sometimes it's nice to just listen, right? Just to be an observer, not a learner. Yeah. I mean, I'm so passionate about learning. I find myself just gravitating toward like what's the next thing.
Oh,
But yeah, again, Deshaun, you kind of remind me like maybe I should just go to my garage gym and like put on some jams. Maybe I'll listen to some of the new music with you.
or do what I do is I do lo-fi, because also with music, words are very influential,
I listen to
right?
that.
Sometimes I want music, I don't want any
YouTube.
words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go to YouTube and just type in lo-fi and it's a really nice for like deep work.
Yeah.
Where it's like the problem being a musician though is anytime I listen to music, like my mind immediately analyzes the music and I can't focus on the task. So yeah, lo-fi is like the perfect combo of music, but not really paying attention to
Try out ambience as a whole nother category.
Ambient.
As a whole nother category of lyricless music, and is just circle back after you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah,
get into it.
That's a pretty cool genre because they can do like, for example, Star Wars ambiance or Lord of the Rings ambiance, whatever.
I'm on Dune right now. Dune ambiance.
Oh wow!
It's cool.
Good. So, Cody, thanks for joining us, and everyone else, thanks for joining us. We're back, season 2. Welcome, everyone. This is the Blueprint at FPA Next Gen Podcast. I'm your host, Deshaun Peterson, alongside my co-host, Mike Zarelli. And with please, everyone, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube, or maybe you're just passing in transit, as we were mentioning earlier, we'd like to welcome our guest today, Cody Garrett. So thank you for joining us, Cody.
I appreciate you inviting me.
And I do have an intro for you. So Cody Garrett is a certified financial planner and the owner of Measure Twice Financial, an advice-only financial planning firm focused on do-it-yourself investors. He's been featured in media outlets across the financial sphere, including CNBC, Forbes, Business Insider, and more. So again, Cody, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Good. So I definitely want to just jump right into it. I think me and you, Cody, share a similar transition. We're both career changers. So you mentioned briefly you're a professional musician for 10 years and now you're a CFP. Can you talk about that epiphany moment of not the actual picking up the book, ordering the CFP, the materials, but the day you're like, things got to change and financial services is where it's at?
So it's funny. I was a professional musician, so a lot of people make the assumption that I moved from music to money so that I could make more money. The irony, though, is I did pretty well as a musician financially, and I actually cut my income in half by switching from music to money. So I was making about $80,000 as a musician, which is pretty good for wearing a lot of hats and playing and arranging and all that. But I actually started my first job as a financial planner. I made $40,000 a year. And I was commuting, I was doing like 2 hours a day of driving, probably working 50 hours a week. Right. So, that transition was not financial for me. Ironically, as a professional musician, I had a full-time church job where I was working 8 to 5 as a music director at a church. Then I'd kind of do like a 5 to 8, maybe a rehearsal. And then I'd do at 8 to 12, right? I might play a wedding gig or, something like that. And on the weekends, I would drive 4 hours one way, play a 4-hour gig and then drive 4 hours back and then play a wedding gig the next morning without, sleeping 1 hour in my car. So the transition for me wasn't really about making more money. It was, how can I spend more time with my family? And by my family, I mean, I got married in 2015. So my wife, Marissa, and I, when you're working 8 to 5, and she was also working 8 to 5 at that point, and then I also working 5 to 8 and 8 to 12, right? I wanted my metric of success in my career not to be how much money I made, but do I have the ability to eat dinner with my wife every day?
Good.
And so the big epiphany moment to me was, how can I make sure that I prioritize my time with my family? And a really good way to think about this is, imagine you have, a 7-day, 24-hour calendar, right? So fill up that calendar with the time you want to spend with your family, whether that's, your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your kids, grandparents, things like that. And then with the space remaining, say, how do I fit my work into that? How do I fit my work into my life? I think a lot of times people start the calendar with their work calendar and say, how can I fit my family into this? And my epiphany was kind of saying, wait a minute, I can flip the switch. Rather than fitting my family into my work, maybe I can fit my work into my family. So that's really the epiphany moment that switched from music to money. And effectively, I had a family friend who was a CFP pro, and he said, hey, if you really want to learn more about personal finance, which is already just interesting to me as a self-employed musician, rather than just listening to podcasts, he said you should enroll in the CFP education program at Rice University just to see if you like it, just to
Nice.
learn and see if you like it. Within 2 classes, I was like, this is what I want to do, right? I want to help people. The way I think about financial planning is these 2 islands, right? There's the island of your comprehensive financial ecosystem. That's everything in your life with a number on it. That's what most of us are focused on and what a lot of people hire us for. But there's this whole other island over here, which is you and your family's unique values and desired outcomes.
Oh, no.
And I find that you need to understand both islands so you can build this bridge, which is the financial plan, right? And
Nice.
of course, as we realize that, like, you can't really build a bridge between 2 islands if you don't fully understand, right, the client you're serving, the people you're serving. So I really gain a genuine curiosity about serving people, understanding them and their, not just the financial stuff, but their unique values, desired outcomes. And so I've been doing financial planning now since the end of 2018. I started at a firm, worked there for 2.5 years, gained my experience hours for the CFP designation, passed the exam, and then I launched my own firm in 2021. So I love financial planning. It's literally the only thing I do in my firm. I don't manage investments. I don't sell any investment and insurance products. Just manage, help people manage their lives with financial planning with an advice-only firm.
Cool.
So again, there's a lot there we could unpack, but I'd love for you to where do you want to go next?
I mean, I have a ton of questions. Go ahead, Mike. I don't want to, take up all the space.
Yeah, it's cool that your epiphany started with, I just want to spend more time with my family. That's pretty unique, I think. And it's interesting how that was the focus. And then there's all these jobs that you can do, all these industries you could enter, and you landed in the one that you're in love with now. So what do you think during the CFP courses? Like, did you know this was going to be your forever industry or the next place that you could spend your career in?
No, it's actually, when I enrolled in the CFP education program, I was still a full-time musician.
Yeah.
So, at the church as a full-time music director, like during my lunch break would be opening up the books for the CFP program. So I actually enrolled in the CFP program not to change careers initially, but to just learn more about, just go deeper in understanding my own personal finances and my family. So we can, start thinking about, we had effectively, if you're thinking about the Dave Ramsey, right? If you think about kind of the typical baby steps, we had built up an emergency fund. We had paid off our consumer debt. We paid off our student loans. So now we were ready to invest. And thankfully we always spent less than we earned, right? So we were very, very intentional and maybe sometimes too frugal with our savings and investing. But before, just like Dave Ramsey would say, he's like, don't invest in what you don't understand. So rather than just taking his advice on how to invest, I said, I truly want to understand, investments, taxes, insurance, the fundamentals of cash flow, of budgeting and, debt management before I put my money to work. So the CFP program to me started off as how can we improve our financial situation as a family? But literally just 2 classes in, I think I have these books behind me, like the fundamentals and then insurance, like 2 classes in, I was like, this is it. Like, so I actually, on a Wednesday night, I did a church rehearsal at, with all my musicians, my team of musicians. And then Thursday morning, I was a full-time financial planner. So literally overnight, I just switched.
Wow.
And thankfully, again, had a rare opportunity. A family friend owned an RIA and he let me just come as a dry sponge with no knowledge. At age 30, I didn't know what an IRA was, right? And I was being hired as an IAR. I had no idea what these letters meant, an RIA, IAR, RIA, IRA, right? But yeah, they gave me the opportunity to learn from the ground up. Just quickly here, I noticed, Mike, back in the day, just as a good little analogy for you. So Mike, you were a server and a trainer at Longhorn Steakhouse for 4 years.
Yes.
Right. So one way I describe kind of, especially next gen planners who are kind of maybe thinking about their first role in the financial planning and thinking about, they're already thinking long term, like, will I own my own firm one day? Right. I always say that kind of treat it as working at working at a restaurant. Right. So Mike, for example, is there any dish that they made at the Longhorn Steakhouse that you were like, man, I wish I knew how to make that dish at home?
I mean, yes. And I've looked at, steaks, obviously that's the world at Longhorn Steakhouse.
Yeah.
And I love steaks. And so I've been working on my craft of how to make a steak just like Longhorn Steakhouse. I think I'm getting pretty close and my wife would probably agree, but especially a New York strip. That's my favorite steak cut of steak. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So that's a perfect example of somebody, that you work at a steakhouse. And the way I describe it is, think about your first financial planning job, or first job as in the industry, as kind of working at a restaurant where you might be hired as a server, right? You might be hired as a client service representative. And a lot of people, they don't take full advantage of that first job,
well,
right? They only focus on the task that they're given. So as a server, you say, hey, like, your only task, right, is to take the order, lead them through the menu, take their order, bring their food to them, pre-bus, ask if they want dessert, and give them their bill at the end of the day. But people like us, right, especially in financial planning, I find that we're typically very driven and intentional with our career paths. Imagine a server who not only does those tasks that they're given, but they also take note of what the other people do, right? They take note of how the hostess greets people. They take note of how the bartender not only serves the drinks, but makes people feel very welcome, and, spend a few more hours at the bar, right? Make sure you increase those sales, right? But also they take note of, they get there early, right? They get there early and see how the manager unlocks the doors, and, kind of sets up the restaurant for the day. How the cooks, again, by the way, you notice with, serving a steak, like, they might do a reverse sear. They might sous vide. They might be doing some, what they call mise en place, right? They might be setting up the food in preparation to cook. So as a server, not only can you learn your task, not only as an advisor can you learn your task, but learn everything about working in the business as a technician, but also learn more about working on the business as a manager and a possible future entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So when I worked at that first firm, they hired me as a customer service rep, which is, hey, answer the phones, and, hopefully you'll over time learn the correct answers to their questions, and, learn how to trade and stuff. But I went to my boss as a dry sponge, and I said, hey, I'd love to learn more about, hey, how do you do payroll, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you bill accounts? How do you manage, onboarding for new clients? If a client passes away, like, how do you deal with that, right? How do you educate, multi generations of the clients we serve at this firm? So just having that genuine curiosity to do more than I was given, that really, like, kind of lit the fire, and I guess, just fueled the flame of, I felt like I got 10 years of experience in the first year as an advisor, because I really was willing to learn more than just my role responsibilities that I was hired for. So again, that was a roundabout way of saying that I encourage everybody here, your first opportunity, you don't have to get 1 year of experience in 1 year. You can potentially get 5 years of experience in 1 year, assuming that you have that drive and intentionality to think deeper about who you want to serve, how you want to serve, beyond this first step.
Yeah, absolutely. That first few roles or experiences that you get, that can really determine the trajectory of the second part of your career, that 5 to 15 year mark. And I agree. Not only does it allow you to just learn the business and how it works, it'll help you. I'm sure you're going to work with business owner clients. It'll help you understand what they're going through. And then also, it just makes you a good employee, somebody that goes over and above what your job description is. I mean, that's job security right there. Not everybody does that.
Yeah, that was, by the way, when I left that firm after 2.5 years, I think my boss said something around the line. When I actually gave him a 3-month notice, because I wanted to respect the time it took to train, the person replacing me. But he said, we're glad to, I'm trying to remember, maybe I rephrase this, but effectively it was the case of, we're glad that you're leaving as an employee in terms of payroll, right? But we're not glad you're leaving as a planner, right? And a member of the team, right? So again, like, when you build, just like you said, like, if you have genuine curiosity to not just go beyond the basics to, like, you're not doing it, right? We get to this idea of giving without expecting something in return. You're not going beyond the basics and doing more as an employee to try to satisfy your boss and to try to, like, kind of climb the ladder, right? It's not a quantitative metric of success you're trying to build. It's that, again, genuine curiosity comes from a place of, you're learning these things because you truly care about the people you're serving. You truly care about your firm. You truly care about the clients you're serving. And when you do that, if you give without expecting something in return, the irony in that is that you actually end up with all those quantitative metrics of success, like higher revenue, higher pay, right? More, kind of career climbing opportunities. in my case, by the way, I started creating educational content as a new financial planner. I find that when you teach, you learn twice. And that's something we do on this podcast, right? By teaching, right? Mike and Deshaun, when you're teaching through this podcast, or your guest are, they're tightening their own screws of knowledge as they're discussing these things, right? Whether you're teaching, financial planning topics or just teaching about career topics. And I created educational content as a new financial planner. Again, I didn't do it to kind of, to increase my quote unquote book of business, right? I've changed the language over time around those words, but I got to a place of just giving educational content freely through Facebook groups and on social media. And within 6 months, 5 prospective clients were reaching out per week to work with me. And within 2 years, that number actually grew to 20 clients per week wanted to work with me, right? So again, that's just one example of, if you go beyond the basics, you're genuinely curious to serve people, not just make money, right? Managing assets or selling products, which are important, by the way. Investment management and selling products, like, that's really important. Implementation and monitoring is such a big part of the financial planning process. But when you truly care about the people you're serving and go beyond the basics, you'll find that your career will not only accelerate, but you'll actually get in a place where you're serving the people that you intended to serve from the very beginning.
Wow. That was great. I was taking notes.
Thanks. I've said these things a few times, I think.
Yeah, well polished. Couple of things that you said at the beginning I really thought was just something to elaborate on. You say you're at a firm, your career's changed, you're 10 years, professional musician. You went in at entry level, curious, dry sponge, and then you went to start your own firm. Why? It's kind of a part A, part B, but I think a better top question is, you said advice only. Mm-hmm. What is advice only? How does it compare to other models that you have been exposed to? And why did you choose that model for you and your clients? I think that's something that's very very important from your perspective, because there are plenty of advisors who are entrepreneurial, want to be entrepreneurs, but this is a business. There is a business element. There has to be a business model. You have to generate revenue. You have to provide for you, yourself, your family, and in value to your clients. But there are multiple models out there. There are some that are established, institutionalized, that, no matter how you feel about them, there are multiple models. You came out with advice only. Why?
Yeah, so I found that most financial advisors who are launching a firm, they actually think about their firm backwards when they create it. They ask 3 questions, but they ask them in the wrong order. What they do is they say, how can I make money with my firm? How can I make money? Right? Or another way of saying that is, rather than saying, how can I charge people, or how can people pay me? And I actually think that's the third question to ask when you're launching a firm. And you'll understand how advice only came about through these questions. So question number 1 is, who do you want to serve? So in as much detail as possible, you need to design who is what I call what's the phrase I use here? Because they're not as polished as I thought. Right. So there's this idea of, you need to design your ideal client avatar. So if you were to launch your own financial planning business or advisory business, let's say that you had an in-person office, if your first day of business, the perfect ideal client walked through the door, who are they? Are they single? Are they married? Are they divorced? Are they partners? Are they same-sex couples? Do they have kids? Right? Do they have children with special needs? Are they scared about money? Are they excited about money? Are they angry about money? Right? Do they have, maybe limited beliefs about what they think about money? Do they have stories, maybe some stories that they've been telling themselves, whether true or untrue, about money? So you need to really design in as much detail as possible, who is the ideal client that I want to help? And what actually helps simplify this question is, most financial advisors who launch a firm, they want to serve either the past version of themselves, the present version of themselves, or the future version of themselves, right? So you have to ask yourself, okay, do I want to serve, me 5 years ago, me today, or me 5, 10, 20 years from now? And so my ideal client avatar is, I wanted to serve married couples, young kids, mid-50s, about $2.5 million investable. They have what I call the time, temperament, and talent to manage their own investments, meaning they have the time, temperament, and talent to make the trades, like click the buttons, but they needed help with, which buttons do I press, right? really they needed help with the planning, but they were willing to do the implementation, which, by the way, most financial advisors are DIY investors who manage their own investments at Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab. Um, so the second question, so now you know who you want to serve. You say, not how do I serve them, but how would they prefer to be served, right? So now that you understand who it is, if they were to go find the ideal financial planner, financial advisory firm for them, what would they be looking for? So that ideal client would be looking for, since they want to manage their own investments, right? They would want to be looking for somebody who provides financial planning without the obligation, or possibly even without the option of managing investments for clients, so that they weren't conflicted to convince a DIY investor to become, turn a validator into a delegator, right? They also wanted to be served specifically. They felt like they could manage their money ongoing, but they wanted to work with somebody maybe once a year. They wanted to have maybe a 3-month engagement, right? Maybe like a checkup once a year. Hey, am I on track? Any changes I need to make? So who I serve, how I serve. Now I've checked off those boxes. The final question is, what is the most appropriate way for the ideal client to pay for the services you provide? And now that I know that it's a DIY investor who wants project-based financial planning, the best way to be compensated for that is to charge for a 3-month process as a flat fee. Every client pays the same fee, dollar amount, for the same service and process. And so when I did it in that order, it simply made my firm advice only, right? So it doesn't really, since I only serve clients who want to manage their own investments, I don't have any investment management in my, I have no discretion or any investments under management, which simplifies a few things in my business. I don't have a phone in my business. So since I don't have to work during market hours because I don't manage investments, there's no such thing as an emergency in my business. There's no calls right before the market opens or before the market closes. I actually don't even provide, I have a business phone number for compliance purposes, but I don't provide it to clients. I take off December 100%. I work with, I actually have no clients, literally no clients in December, which might sound scary to some people, but allows me the time and energy to focus on my 3 other businesses that I've created in the meantime as I've been building. So again, just going back to that question of advice only, advice only means that the firm has not only no obligation, but no option to manage investments at the firm level, which means that when they provide financial planning to clients, there's no possible obligation that the recommendation would be, hey, for your investment recommendations, we recommend that we do it for you, right? So it takes off any, there's no such thing as a no conflict of interest business, but it takes off the potential conflict that my investment recommendations will be focused on, gaining assets under management.
Really well said. I like how you said the questions are normally answered, but maybe in the wrong way. And
right.
It sounds like you were able to come to the conclusion that, hey, we need to flip this upside down. Now, to get there, was there a mentor along the way that helped out, especially as a career changer, a business owner? I got to imagine there's somebody that helped you get to that conclusion.
Yeah. So what's funny is all of my mentors in launching my firm had different businesses. I would say that one of the mentors for me was Andy Panko. Another was Mike Powers. So these are both financial advisors who were launching their own firms differently. They wanted to launch firms that did include financial planning and investment management, but they wanted to provide investment management for a flat fee, which is also another rare thing in the industry. To charge clients a flat fee, not based on how much money is being managed, whether it goes up or down, or you pay off debt, or you give more to charity. That the dollar amount doesn't change regardless of market events. So again, I think the mentorship was more just that accountability to just keep moving forward regardless of how scary it felt. I would say that financially, even though I didn't, I think when I left my firm, I was making about $50,000 or $55,000 a year, and my wife actually had become a stay-at-home spouse at that point, so she wasn't earning money outside of the home. So again, only making $50,000 to $55,000, money could have felt tight, but because we were frugal, we actually had a whole year of runway. So we wanted to have a year of personal and business expenses set aside. Personal being about $50,000 and business being about $10,000 to $20,000 set aside before I launched my business. But one of the things that encouraged me to actually go ahead and launch is my educational content had been so had become so popular at that point in social media that the first day I launched my firm, 17 clients signed that day. So, and I only work with 22 clients a year. So yeah, so 17 out of the 22 reached out the first day I launched my firm. So thankfully, I actually was able to put all that money that I had set aside as a just in case emergency fund. I was able to put that money back into the market, right, for long term growth. Yeah. So, but I would say the mentorship of like Andy Panko, Mike Powers, those were two that really encouraged me not to do it like them, but encouraged me to just keep going and like to just kind of talk me through some of those limited beliefs of like, I don't know if I can manage my own business. I'm not sure how to set this up and register. And I did launch my business through XY Planning Network, which is a great way to launch a firm because they provide all the compliance support that I didn't know anything about how to launch a firm, what forms did I need to fill out, like how do I talk to regulators? They got all that covered, and I was able to focus on my website, right, my service, my process, my fee, right, my branding, right, just being very intentional about like the language I use in my firm, so that and let XY Planning Network deal with all the administrative stuff that I was a little scared about at the beginning.
Yeah, very cool. And it kind of sounds like it's more of a mastermind that was your mentor than somebody that's been in the industry 15 years and owned a business and all that kind of stuff. So it's accountability partners that, like you said.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody here. Again, I just try to get actionable things that if you think about your total wellness in your life kind of as a big pie, but there's slices, like there's your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual practices, your relationships, and your financial wellness, right? All those things are interrelated. And I would encourage everybody here that, we talk about having a mentor for launching a firm, but you can also have a mentor in all those areas, right? You can have a mentor in your physical, maybe you have a coach for physical health. Maybe you go to, I see a therapist about once a month for my mental health, right? So how can you invest your time, energy, and financial resources into your physical, mental, spiritual, relational health? By the way, like, treating my mom to lunch someday, right? Like that's a financial expense, but that's a way that I'm investing in my relationships. So I would say that, not just investing in it that way, but think about how can you either, have a free mentor or a mastermind group or even pay somebody to mentor you in those stages. So financial wellness, I think I pay $500 a month for a business coach, right? Who helps me really, since I have 4 businesses, he helps me prioritize like what's my focus this quarter, right? What's like, how am I spending my time and energy to make sure that how I spend my time is actually aligned with my core values of generosity and transparency. So I think, yeah, I would say have a one-on-one mentor. I meet with a business coach once a month. I meet with just another advisor once a week, just for an hour, just to kind of, again, when you're a solo business, it's nice to have, you still want that water cooler type of conversation, that you still want to have conversations and feel like you're collaborating. So yeah, I would just encourage everybody here, like just think beyond yourself, regardless of what part of the industry you're in and how long you've been in the industry. There's people who have been in the industry for 40 years who still have somebody they look up to and mentor them. So yeah, if you don't have a mentor now, like again, by the end of this month, maybe again, depending on when this podcast comes out, within the next month, try to find a way you can have a mentor in each of those areas, and you will be, again, like a year from now, you'll be thanking yourself.
Definitely. I just asked for someone to be my mentor probably within the last month. So we're like meeting every 6 weeks. And it's like a good feeling just knowing that someone's in your corner. I think that's something that is understated when you think about mentorship, and it can be in any capacity: career, health, life, spirituality. And I think that's definitely a lot of things that we hear. And I think in today's time of do-it-yourself, individual, self-made, but it takes a team, whether they're seen or not, whether they're colleagues or not, to reach those new heights. So I really appreciate you sharing that. You said actionable. So I think I really want to drill down this career changer stuff, because I think that it is just so many people want to be career changers, right? They have their own niche. So if you were to say, hey, here are 3 things that I would tell a career changer today that are pragmatic, actionable, or just some guardrails, Cody, what would you tell that person? Because like you mentioned, you and your wife, think about those other people. Maybe it's me, my wife, and 2 kids, or me and my wife and 2 cats, or, me and I'm solo, been working at this firm for, as you say, just like clients, every advisor, every person in financial services is at a different different journey in their life. But what are some things that you would tell those people?
Yeah, so I think that first of all, I think that this is a never-ending game of learning. This is an infinite game. Like you're never going to stop learning, even after you have designations. So there are two books I'd recommend to any career changer or just anybody aspiring to be a financial planner. One is Caleb Brown's Finding Your Path, the roadmap from student to successful financial planner.
I got mine.
He specializes in helping students in college, become financial planners. That's a book. But again, even if you're, everybody's a student in a way, right? So yeah, that's a great book, Finding Your Path. Also, Daniel Yerger has a book called Getting in the Door, which is a great. It's what's nice about that book is it kind of like lays out the pathways of like the types of financial professional you might become, whether you're a financial advisor, whether you work in insurance sales, whether you're a financial planner, or whether, again, maybe you're just doing planning, maybe you're doing planning with investment management. So I think understanding your path, those two books, Finding Your Path and Getting in the Door. Also, FPA, shout out, right? Financial Planning Association. Literally within the first, I think even before I became a financial planner, I went to a chapter meeting, an FPA chapter meeting, right? So I think I can talk about mentorship, right? One of the best places to find a mentor, right, is to get connected with your local FPA chapter. Also, there's chapters of FPA, NAPFA. There's a lot of organizations, Garrett Planning Network. So maybe even before you even started a firm, just look at your local communities. There's a lot of generosity, even literally after this call. Sometimes I just hang out with the FPA Next Gen crowd in Michigan. I'm not in Michigan, but I just like to hang out and just if I can be a mentor to the people who have mentored me in the past.
Shout out to Colin.
Shout out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Colin Overweg is amazing. So Stephanie there, they've got, again, there are so many. Financial planning is such a generous profession. The industry as a whole hasn't necessarily been that generous and transparent in prior decades in terms of, there's been the kind of this wall between advisors and consumers. But I think that financial planning is really breaking down that wall. So again, there's a quote that Ricky Minor, who was the bass player for, the Jay Leno show and American Idol and a few other shows, but, Whitney Houston back in the day, he was one of my mentors as a financial planner. And one of the quotes that he used was, "Nobody's going to call you if they don't have your number." Right. So I think there's a lot of aspiring financial planners or even, new in the industry financial advisors who they're kind of waiting for an opportunity to come their way. They're like, I hope somebody reaches out. I hope somebody sends me a DM. But the thing is, they're waiting for an invitation from somebody who doesn't know they exist. They're waiting for a DM from somebody they're not connected to on LinkedIn. They're waiting for a phone call from a firm that doesn't even know they're not even in the list of applicants. So I think it starts with learning, and the second part is you need to expand your network as quickly as possible. I would say that, again, if you're listening to this, by the end of this month, I'll give you another action item. By the end of this month, whether you're an aspiring or new or even legacy financial planner advisor, how can you connect with 25 financial advisors who are in a place that you'd like to be in the next 5 to 10 years? And if you don't know who those people are, again, that's where the learning comes in. That's where it comes to, hey, go to NAPFA, go to FPA, go to the CFP board website, start researching financial advisors who do what you want to do, who serve the types of people you want to serve. Don't filter necessarily by the financial planning areas, but filter by, hey, I want to serve young professionals. I want to serve people who are about to retire. I want to serve people who need long-term care and are in their 70s, 80s, right? So go filter for the financial planners who serve those types of people. And again, most of those people will be within your local FPA chapter too. So I would just say learn, connect, and then at that point, by the way, I don't even have to tell you you're going to know your next step after you've done those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that's actually a great segue into my next question. Earlier you said you learn twice by teaching, and I've found writing is one of the best ways to do that, whether that's LinkedIn posts or writing articles, whatever it is. As Deshaun mentioned at the beginning, you've been featured on many different outlets. So how did you get your foot in the door? And then what benefits have you seen from that?
Yeah, so one of the big opportunities for kind of getting my, I call it social proof in a way, kind of getting your name out there to the public. Ben Lewis at the FPA, he's such an advocate of kind of changing the public perception of what we do. So he's actually the perfect, Ben Lewis, I'm pretty sure he's still at FPA doing great work. he's really the great connector between, advisors and consumers in terms of the media space. So I've probably been featured in, I don't know, like 50 different articles, again, like Wall Street Journal, Barron's, Forbes, all those things. Most of those were through opportunities through FPA, through the Financial Planning Association. Also, it used to be called Help a Reporter Out, HARO. I think it's, what's the name of it now, right? It became something else. You know, there's what is it called? I know that I get their.
Is it CoVision?
Yeah. So yeah. Actually, Quoted. So
Quoted.
QUOTED is a fantastic website where you can kind of put yourself out there as an expert in certain financial areas, and you'll start getting emails. I think in the last week I've probably received like 100 emails, from outlets asking for my advice and insights on certain topics. I would say that it is nice to get your name out there in media, but I would also encourage everybody here, find a way to teach. Whether it's like create a. By the way, I always say like start with how you like to learn. So if you like to read, maybe you start with writing a blog. If you like to watch YouTube videos, maybe you can start your own. Maybe you can like record your own videos. And same thing with podcasts. You like to listen to podcasts, maybe you start a podcast. Maybe you invite the people that invite the host to your podcast to be guest, right? So I think that as you're learning, regardless of which stage you're in, anytime you learn something, say, how can I teach this to somebody else in the way that I like to learn? So again, if you like to read, right, say, how can I? So hey, I just learned about the difference between traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. How can I teach that to somebody else through writing?
Right.
So again, I always say, when you teach, you learn twice. The best way to learn is to teach. So when I went through the CFP program, every time I learned something, I said, how can I turn this? I wasn't turning it into content to try to find clients. I was saying, how can I teach this to somebody else so that I can double up on my learning, tighten those screws, so that by the time I take the CFP exam, I really, really know this stuff. So I think the only reason that I passed the CFP exam, 9 months after I was quote unquote, just a professional musician, I think the only reason I passed the test on the first time was that I spent so much time teaching others, just creating content, not for quote unquote getting clients, but for just saying, how can I help other people and learn along the way?
Yeah, you said well spoken as always. I like how you say that. I guess the saying I was taught is like, if you could teach it to a fifth grader, you're an expert. Just by using 100%. That very simple language and not convoluting certain terms, because most people don't want that. They want to be communicated simply so that they can also understand. So here's one thing I think that you brought up: podcasts, content, YouTube, everything. Everyone is not good at everything. Mm-hmm. What would you encourage people, or how did you find out that podcast or speaking was your strength versus writing? Because something that you like or enjoy doing doesn't mean you're good at it, right? So I think there is a fine line that, there's a certain level of accountability and humility we have to face up to. How did you come across that? And, what would you share about your own journey through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer to that for me is, I think the kind of the confusion or the discipline to figure out like, hey, which medium am I going to choose to create content? Actually, it's less about the type of content. It's actually, sometimes we have this idea that we're creating content for a lot of people. We say, oh my gosh, I'm going to start YouTube. I'm so scared. Like tons of people are going to see or might see my mistakes, or, hear me say something stupid or on screen. But I would say that if you come back to that question of who do you want to serve, you can ask the same question. You can say, who do I want to teach? Who do I want to teach? Or really, another way is like, who needs to know what I know? Who would be served by this information? And what's really easy now is I can say, if I were to create this content for one person, who would that be? So let's say that I'm learning a lot about retirement planning. I learn a lot about Social Security and how that works. I could say, who do I know personally who would benefit from knowing this information? I'd say, maybe my mom or my grandparents, maybe they're about to claim Social Security. Maybe I could go, maybe I could teach them. So a really cool idea is say, hey, whether it's a blog or YouTube or podcast, say, how could I record myself teaching my mom this information? And a really fun trick, by the way, is to, let's say that you want to do YouTube or a podcast. We're going to record your voice. Get on a call with your mom on video in this example, and just tell her about Social Security, but record that conversation. Then, by the way, you're not going to put that conversation on YouTube, right? But what you're going to do is you're going to take that episode, or that quote unquote episode, you're going to take that recording that you just spent just teaching your mom or teaching your brother or teaching your, your friend this information. You're going to turn that into a script, right? You're going to turn the video into a written script. Now you're going to edit that script, probably with the help of ChatGPT a little bit to make it a little cleaner, right?
Hopefully
you're going to edit that
one.
script, and now, right? Yeah, hopefully it's one of the newer AIs
40,
out there. Yeah, exactly. But imagine if you took that content that was just informal teaching your parents. Now you have the script, you edit the script, and now you re-record. Now you re-record that script. That's, by the way, it won't sound formal because you started with the informal. You started with the informal script and you edited it down. It's still gonna sound like it's in your own voice. It's still gonna feel natural to you. But you can literally read word for word that script on a podcast or a YouTube. Again, you can have it on your screen where it looks like you're looking at the screen, or use AI to help you look like you're actually looking at the screen, not your script. But like, that's a really easy way to give content to a lot of people potentially, but feel like you're only creating it for one person. So I think the imposter syndrome of creating content is that we haven't identified who's on the other side of the screen. And if you create for an audience of one rather than an audience of who knows who's going to see this, it really takes down the anxiety and imposter syndrome of creating that first piece of content. So I would just say, yeah, just get started with creating it for one person. And if 100 people see it, great. If only one person sees it, great. You helped one more person than you did the day before.
One is more than zero.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. And we know the power of compound, right? 1% annually, right? 1% daily.
Yeah,
really compounds.
1% daily up but you think about the opposite. 1% compounded negatively is not nearly as much the other direction, right? So the downside isn't nearly as low as we think it is. Thank you for that, Cody.
Absolutely.
What I love about it, it's kind of the same framework as starting your firm, starting with who's the ideal audience, who do I want to help out, and then from there you
make it one person to start.
Yeah,
make it just one client, one person that you're starting with. Yeah,
right, and then the voice comes right along with it. So I think that's the other part. And I will say, for those that say I hate my voice, I don't like listening to it, you get over that very, very quickly, and you'll push through.
I still don't like my voice, but it happens.
Well, I hear you loud and clear, Deshaun. You sound good.
Thank you.
And yeah, you've ever heard that phrase? Some people say I have a face for audio.
Yeah.
Right. You both have the face and the voice for video and audio, so you're in a good place.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Cody, thank you for coming today. Did you have fun?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anytime. I always ask myself, if I look at my calendar and say, hey, which meetings this week did I feel like I had more energy at the end of the meeting than I did when I started the meeting? And I always say, this has been energy giving. I feel like I have more energy now than I started. So thank you both for, giving to me. Again, your audience, like anytime you're looking to give or receive, let me know. I've got literally dozens of hours of educational content there to share with you freely. But I'm so glad to be here. And I'm so glad that you two are helping push the profession forward to change the public perception of what financial planners actually do, what it feels like, what it looks like in real life.
No, thank you. I think to drop something in there just because before we close out, Mike, one of my favorite books, Cody, I'm not sure if you had it, The Go-Giver.
By Bob Burg, B-U-R-G, that's right.
One of my favorite books. Don't be a go-getter, be a go-giver. Oh my goodness, just a wave. More energy because it does come back.
Yeah, I would say, to end here, the definition of kindness to me is giving to others without expecting something in return. As soon as you're expecting something in return, that can easily become manipulation rather than actually just kindness. So find a way to give to somebody without expecting something in return, and you'll feel so good. You'll help them, you'll help yourself, you'll get the dopamine hit of seeing that tangible impact of how you're helping the world. But yeah, thanks so much for helping push our world forward in financial planning.
Absolutely. Genuine curiosity, I think, is the theme of this episode. So this has been The Blueprint, an FPA Next Gen podcast with Cody Garrett. We'll see you in the next one.